A lot of people think of anime when they hear about Japan. However, Japan is more like a land of video games. Gaming has been a thing in Japan since the 80s, and it was already popular at that time, compared to the West, which became mainstream just a few years ago. Super Mario, Dark Souls, Final Fantasy, Pokemon, Legend of Zelda, and Resident Evil are some of the Japanese games which become popular around the world. The Japanese are so dominant in the gaming industry, and they are also the reason why the gaming scene is so huge right now. They are the one who changes everything for the gaming scene, and we're gonna know how they become so dominant. We're gonna start all the way to beginning before the Japanese game becomes so dominant. Games all the way started in the 1960s, and in 1970s, Japan very quickly followed and began producing their own games. Some of the games they release has become very popular around the world, that even to this day, it's still popular, and it also become one of the most iconic game of all time. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Space Invader. These three games become pillars for the future of games, and Donkey Kong also introduced the most iconic video game character, Mario. With the introduction of the Japanese game to the West, the video game crash suddenly happened in 1983. The North American video game industry experienced a major crash due to a number of factors, including an oversaturated game console market, competition from computer gaming, and a surplus of overhyped low-quality video games. Then in 1985, a small Japanese company named Nintendo released something that will change and save the gaming industry. They released the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, also known as Famicom. The NES became an instant hit and it surpassed any previous game console. Some of the things that the NES improved were the 8-bit graphics, colors, sound, and gameplay. The Nintendo not only introduced the NES, but they are also the one who created Donkey Kong, Super Mario, Final Fantasy, and The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo also popularized the handheld gaming with the release of the 8-bit Game Boy in 1989. The Game Boy revolutionized the handheld scene, and its design became an icon of the era. Even to this day, they continuously release a number of successful successors to the Game Boy, including the Game Boy Color in 1998, Nintendo DS in 2004, Nintendo 3DS in 2011, and the Nintendo Switch in 2017. Over the years, the Japanese game and console have continued to grow, evolve, become more popular, and more dominant in the global market. The Japanese game play a big part in shaping the world of gaming and help the industry to reach the impossible. After a few years, Nintendo did not change. They still managed to stay at the top of gaming industry. However, SEGA followed in the console business and got replaced by another Japanese company, Sony, and the Western powerhouse, Microsoft. By 2002, the Japanese video game industry was worth about 50% of the worldwide video game market. However, this had reduced to around 10% by 2010. This reduction in market share has been attributed to both the economic recession and the difference in taste between the Western and the Japanese audience. During this time and for a few years afterward, the decline of the Japanese gaming industry was also partly attributed to the Japanese company taking a long time to develop games, having a slow release date on video game console, and no longer appealing to a global audience on the same scale they had previously. Japan was seen as 5 years behind the market at this point, and they needed to do something in order to get back to the top. The year 2016 is the year when Japanese video game is starting to resurgence. In 2016, we got the release of Pokemon Go, which achieved worldwide success and helped to propel sales of other Pokemon video game titles, such as Pokemon Sun and Moon. Other Japanese games released in 2016 were very popular, such as World of Final Fantasy. Then 2017 saw further games released to critical and commercial success, such as Gravity Rush 2, Yakuza 0, and then Persona 5, which won many awards. Then year after year, Japan released some of the best games, Monster Hunter World, Breath of the Wild, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, which has sold more than 10 million copies on Steam in just a week. Japanese game also dominated in best-selling video games. Out of all the top 50 best-selling video games, 28 of it was a Japanese game and 27 of them were from the biggest Japanese video game company, Nintendo. And the other game is Sonic from SEGA. On that alone, we can see how dominant the Japanese game are. Japanese game have a very big influence on why gaming is so huge right now, and we're gonna know on what is the secret of their success. The answer is very simple. They really know what kind of games are appealing, and their games are so ahead of the time. Even though the games they released 30 years ago are still an amazing game, even though it's a very old game. Most of the Japanese game is a timeless game. You can still enjoy playing it even though it's a very old game. A good example of this is Pac-Man, Metal Gear Solid, Sonic, Super Mario, and Pokemon. One of the big reasons why they are so successful is because of Nintendo. Nintendo created the two biggest video franchise, Pokemon and Super Mario. Not only that, but they also influence a lot of games right now, and they also have a big influence on gaming console. A few examples of that is when they created the NES back in 1985, which revolutionized the gaming industry at that time. On top of that, Japanese game has always been ahead of the competition when it comes to refined technology and gameplay. Every year, they are introducing something new. Gameplay and graphics became more innovative. Also, the characters and stories are more complex. They also make unique games, relaxing games, weird games, and very hard games just like Elden Ring. They really have a lot of different type of games. There is so much to be explored. They are also in the top when it comes to creating video game for every video game category. Visual novel, fighting game, rhythm game, action adventure, and a lot more. Another thing that people may forget, but the Japanese are great in advertising. They will make a bizarre commercial or they will collab with other company in order to market their product. A good example of their great marketing is their character. Their character is the marketing itself. They will make it more unique, memorable, and approachable to the people. And they make a character plushies, figure, t-shirt, and etc. That is why they become more recognizable. Like everyone knows Sonic and Mario, even though they never play the game. That is one of the things that the Western game industry is missing. They are also successful because of the passionate people working behind the scene that make Japanese games so dominant. Especially the game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, who is regarded as one of the video game industry great pioneer. He is also known for creating Donkey Kong, Mario, and Legend of Zelda. A lot of media outlets such as Time called him the Spielberg of video game and the father of modern video game. Then the Daily Telegram say he is regarded by many as possibly the most important game designer of all time. And they also credited him with creating some of the most innovative, groundbreaking, and successful work in his field. While the game trailer called him the most influential game creator in history. Someone like Shigeru Miyamoto is the reason why Japan game industry is such a well-developed industry. He pioneered the new video game concept and refined the existing one. That's why Shigeru Miyamoto's game have received outstanding critical praise and some being considered the greatest game of all time. A lot more outstanding game designer just like him are the reason why Japan stayed as one of the top game designer. They also exceed when it comes to visual art and music. Their music is one of the things that the Japanese game industry is being well praised around the world. Also, the music of their game is so iconic that a lot of people really love it. Just like the iconic Super Mario soundtrack, the jazz music of Persona 5, or just epic soundtrack of Final Fantasy by the legendary composer Nobuo Uematsu. Not only their music is so amazing, but their visual art is also one of the best. You easily recognize if it's a Japanese game at just first glance. Their character design is so unique and the background scenery is full of life. Japanese game is really like an art collection. They really innovated the competition and influenced other countries. Just like the video game expert Blake J. Harris said that without Japan contribution, the video game industry would not be what it's like today. He is correct. Japan produced most of the best video game ever created. They created different types of gaming genre, different types of gameplay, they created software and even the gaming console. The Japanese are really the most passionate when it comes to creating video game and improving the gaming industry. 20 years ago, Japan has been dominating the video game industry. A lot of experts say the 80s all the way to 90s video game was all about Japanese game and calling it the golden age of video game. However, when 2010 comes, their market reduced by 10% and it was just 2016 when they managed to dominate again, but not so dominant just like in their glory days. Right now, the competition is much tougher, but the Japanese game is still maintaining the spot for being at the forefront. Every year, they are becoming more dominant and leading the gaming industry to a better future. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoy, make sure to subscribe so I know to keep making more video like this one.